Welcome back, Team Nation. We are so excited to have another practitioner to interview. So I met this hypnotist plus. I can't wait for you guys to meet her and everything that she's involved with. I'm Lauren. Happy day, Troy. How you doing?
Happy day, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing happy. I'm always wondering what it is I'm going to say when I'm starting this podcast, because I know what I really want to say, which is just I'm grateful for you. And I'm grateful for this community of other co-creators who are ready to empower their life with not just information, but techniques. I hope that you guys are feeling inspired, because truly Troy and I talk all the time about how honored we feel to be in this role and what hypnosis has done for us personally.
Well, speaking about becoming inspired, I'll let you introduce her, but this is going to be really inspiring based upon this preamble that the three of us had been speaking about for the last few minutes here.
Yeah, the energy. We were just like fangirling. So I've never, met her in person, but we did some further, development education together. And it just felt like energetically there was a really strong instant bond. Like I was just interested in everything that she was saying. Her vibe was so much fun. So come on out, Shama. Please introduce yourself. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren and Troy. And I felt the same. Likewise, it's like when we meet people that vibe together, we just magnetize, right? And it was really wonderful. Thank you for having me here. I'm Shama Dhanani. I'm a hypnotherapist, master trainer, and a shaman. And I do a lot of work with energy work from my lineage of India. So there's a lot of chakra work, meditation teachings. And I love incorporating the practical stuff in because I did 20 years in finance. So can't take that person out of here, which is a good thing because we don't want to, anchor our spirituality, but not practically apply it in the world. So I'm really excited to be here and find the ways that resonate for all of us, right? Take what speaks, leave anything else behind. We don't take anything personal because we're all here on this journey.
Exactly. I love what you said about meeting people where they are. Hypnosis can be a turnoff for some people. The stigmas or previous experiences, especially in the media, the entertainment, the stage shows. And so I love that you have that really sort of left brain, right, financial background. I can't believe 20 years. That's
I know. I don't look my age. Don't tell anyone. Shh.
well, I know hypnosis works for age reversal. So maybe people would want to talk with you about that for sure. How'd
Well, I know
you
happiness makes us look younger. So that might be it, right? And hypnosis gets us to that place where we know ourselves and we can be at peace and joy and pleasure. And I'm sure that's helped my age reversal for
Mhm,
sure.
mhm. Yeah, that's why I liked you so much, because your happiness. And Shama the shaman, like it was just too cool to not remember. Um,
I don't even call myself that. I think I just get that nickname anywhere I go because this synchronicity of how close those are, it just happens.
mhm. How'd you get into this? Tell me, so 20 years
Yeah.
in finance, were you like into it sort of in the
So,
background?
yeah, well, in finance, I was in wealth management services. So, like, what I did all day long, and I still get really excited by this because I love systems. I think that's what it is. And I think that's why hypnotherapy is so exciting because it's the patterns of our mind and understanding oneself through understanding those patterns. You're your power source. Those resources allow you to wield that power however we want. And for me, like, when I was in finance, that was exciting. It was like strategies of how to take what we already have and make more from that. Well,
Mhm.
this is like one of the ways, because there's many ways to work smarter, not harder. This is one of the ways to work smarter, not harder. And I'm a first generation American. I came from an immigrant family. For me, this was a phenomenal experience, so much so I didn't even know I was having a phenomenal experience. I was just doing my best, working and making my way through. And in doing so, I learned so much about, because here's the truth, just like a hairdresser, financial advisory team is like a therapist. Okay. So,
Right.
because when people manage, you're managing and helping manage people's money, you're helping determine working with their lawyers and their trusts and estate planning and their wills. And like it's a full around understanding of how to really strategically be patient and get ahead in life and do the work. Right. Like there's so much more involved in anything manifesting than just the manifestation. So that gave me that back end experience. So when I came here and did the manifesting work, and I was like, I see what's happening in the industry. People are like woo woo manifesting, but nothing's happening. Yeah, because we're still on planet Earth in human suits and we still got to do the actions to execute this. So it's really interesting how that was in my first part of my life. I had no idea I was going to become a hypnotherapist, but that was a really cool foundation. And to experience that in New York City was phenomenal. And I have to say, this part still surprises people when I say this. The entire experience in finance shielded me from bias, racism, and sexism because I somehow was always working for people that were inclusive, supportive, and powerful women that had already broke glass ceilings. Because working in the financial industry in the 90s and the start of the 2000s, that's when those women that were the pioneers that just broke those glass ceilings were paving the way. So it was such a phenomenal time I feel really grateful and blessed, right? Because like as a woman, to experience that, as a woman of color, to see that, it was so good. It's so good. It gives me hope in the world. And I share that because this was my experience 20 years in finance. Since then, I've done 10 years, a decade of this work. Mm-hmm. So if that was the world then, it's gotten better, you guys. There's hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's supporting people. I mean, that's the intent. People think finances have corruption, but no, it's resource so that you can live a life, which is what we want to do to Team Nation, is help you be empowered in your life. And so this is exactly what you're doing. You're empowering people. I don't know if you call yourself an empowering coach. I know you say soul coaching. So
I say activator, actually. Okay. Because, there's a lot that comes with all of the different stories we all have in our lives, right? I just shared a story of being a woman. Now, that's a story a lot of women share with me, but it's not a story men share with me. But the stories that we all do have in common is the different ways we may not have been empowered, or we may not have believed we can do something. And a lot of that has to do with we are probably the first time in human civilization where we can do it. So it makes sense the generational patterns that were passed down, we're not in that belief system yet. We literally have to change that. We inherited systems that didn't exist from our families because that world didn't exist until we just created it. Now we need to claim it. How do we do that if the auto programming is still in the old world? So that's the transition.
Yeah. So you spent 20 years in finance, right? And then you said the last 10 years, the last decade doing this kind of work and helping people empower themselves. I'm curious, was there an instance or an event or a turning point where you were just like, yeah, this is the path for me moving forward now?
Yeah. So I'll just give a quick synopsis. It was my divorce. And, I was raised in a very religious family, and I did not marry within the rules of what they recommended. And that's not why we broke. We broke because I didn't know then, but I know this now. My husband at the time was exhibiting patterns of what I experienced with my dad with alcoholism. And there was some warnings in me, I think, that went off. And I didn't know at the time that's why it was shifting. But I did know that I needed to heal where it came from and my patterns of what I accepted in those types of environments. But when you don't have a frame of reference of what else could be possible, right? Other than maybe TV, which how real is that? Because I don't, they painted in such a rosy picture. It's like, why are there extremes? There's something in the middle that's beautiful for all of us. And I knew that. And so when my marriage didn't work out and we had been together 7 years, we decided to part ways. And I was very distraught because I knew whatever was there is something that I can have influence over. And when this comes across my life again, I want to be prepared. I want to make sure I did what's in me to create a life that I know I have faith I can create. And while this was happening in my romantic space, in my family life, I really meant that in all ways. Because the profession I went into it because I needed a sense of security. I was leaving an unsafe home. And I was just a really smart kid and then a really smart young adult because I was driven by a work ethic of a culture full of stereotypes about how Indian people work really hard. So it was like the things that weren't necessarily, the things that I want to hear are good. I let them fuel me. I took anything that was there that was harmful and I was like, let's turn it to fuel. And we helped move forward. So hypnotherapy was something I found that I cracked open. And when I say cracked open, parts of me cried that I did not know needed to cry. And parts of me had awareness of all that I had done. And I was able to learn the resources I already had. I was able to remove the blinders for the resources that I knew I was able to access and claim. And a lot of that included a lot of oppression that I had experienced in a family sense, in a cultural sense. I mean, you could see I got gorgeous caramel skin. So that didn't come with just a pretty price tag. It came with bad stuff too. So how to just take that all and wipe it away? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's people in this world who are mean to other people all the time. It's going to happen everywhere because they're all fueled by internalized biases of fear. Everything comes from either fear or love. And I always want to choose love. And that meant I had to work through all my fears.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a rebirth in a sense.
Oh, total rebirth. That was a rebirth. And then I did another one this time. So yeah, absolutely. It was a total rebirth. I mean, it was painful at the time. It was traumatizing at the time. But fortunately, having a support system like a hypnotherapist, I also went to India around the same time and became certified in meditations and teaching stuff from my own lineage and really going to the root of learning about the chakras and learning about the chakras instead of a watered down version, which makes a difference to me because it's my lineage. Right. And it just is so soul enriching to understand in doing that how we're all actually doing the same things especially when it comes to hypnotherapy and how we know the brain waves. We're all working in the same places of the subconscious, but we're using different tools from different lineages, different generations, and different natural resources, right? Sage is used by the Native Americans here, whereas in India, we use resins of copal, myrrh, and frankincense because geographically, these are the things that are available to us in these geographies. We're all doing similar things. And it's so gorgeous that I got to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I do this work, to me, it is a unity of everyone. But I think we just forget to look at, we did them differently because, hey, this was a natural resource in my land and this was a natural resource in my land. And now we all live on the same land and we're sharing our natural resources. But they're all like, now we don't have to be localized for where these things are. They're shipped all over the world.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's just phenomenal. That's how it started. And I went, I was it healed me so much in a year that I was like, I'm going to get certified. So in 2014, I got my first hypnotist certification. And in 2015, I took the full leap and I started my business full time. And in 2016, I took it fully onto Zoom. So I was on Zoom way before COVID. And I got to learn how energy transcends space and time. So my shamanic work and energy work also was super effective on Zoom, sometimes more so, depending on the recipient, because some people benefit from being in the comfort of their own home more, or from not having to commute or travel to a location for something so deliciously relaxing. So and each of those steps was scary, right? Because the world hasn't done it yet, but you never know until you try, and look at the miracles we find.
And are finding. I mean, right? Magnetically, I feel like you're pulling me in and sharing energy in this time now. So I really appreciate it.
So that's interesting because the science has proven that electricity is the pulse that happens in our brain when our neurons go in our gut, but in our heart, it's vibrational energy. Right. And isn't that gorgeous? So like when you say that, it's like that pulsation is the heart energy, whereas the sparks are flying here or in your gut.
I love
it's super
it.
cool.
I liked what you really said about the resources because you're right. We always have around us something that can be used with intention. Because I think that's what, those rituals really got the support from was the intention. It was that, I guess, maybe heart's pulse of focus and just true belief, not the placebo, but just a genuine knowing that you are manifesting this thing that you need, because of course it's all internal.
Yeah.
And that's why no one could validate you. You have to find your own sense of flair. Whoever you are, that's the exact perfect version of you now. And time will keep folding on and have fun, right? Don't take it seriously.
So don't take it seriously. I think, in fact, one of the things that I'm most grateful for is ego death. Truly, because the resource state is blocked by pride and ego. And a lot of us, especially, brace yourself, unpopular opinion possibly, which is it's our ego that stops us. We are in the most wealthiest country. Nobody here is ever going to go hungry. We just have too much pride to go hungry and ask for food. Sometimes we just have too much pride, right? And be cautious with that. Because when you look at that, look at where it's coming from. Is it coming from a place of shame or guilt, or like, what is that, right? Because that's not the biology of human nature and design. So why would we be ashamed to lean into the biology, which is communal, which is asking for help, which is saying, hey, sister, brother, I need this. And here's what I can offer you in exchange. Now, we do this very naturally in the capitalism system, you guys. That's the part where we've been conditioned to do it, but you can do it outside of that. We came from a barter system, and you can look at that, right? Like if a friend, things are not always equal, right? Things don't happen equally always, but the exchange of energy, right? It may not be a return in kind, but that ripple goes forward to somebody else. And somehow it'll always come back. I give freely to those that I know there's a beautiful energy with. Somehow miraculously, it often comes back in the weirdest ways. Because like I had an ex that I worked with a lot and with hypnotherapy, and this woman came to me to work with me, and it turns out she had just worked with him and ended up at me because I had to be the next stage of this work. I didn't know her through him. Miraculously, from the other side of the country, she ends up with me.
Yeah.
So it's never like, it doesn't always come back in kind. And that's where that trust in yourself comes. Be free to give freely or don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't compromise yourself. Clear out the why first.
When you work with people, do you have a focus that you really get inspired, or is it just, what comes through the door? Do you draw in people for abundance? I know that you step out of your ego state.
Yeah.
Right?
I used to draw in for abundance. I did courses on money. And I'll be honest with you, I'm changing the way I address that because I'm happy to help people who want to make money. That is a byproduct and it will happen. It is a resource tool. My job is to help people realize they are the power source. You are the power source. Anything else is a tool. So if you're coming to me putting more power in the money than in your source, that's the shift we're going to make here, because then you'll make the money. But you got to anchor that power through you, because otherwise you are a slave to the money, always and forevermore. And the ego plays into that, right? You can't shift your dynamic with the monetary system if you're going to stay in the trauma of the monetary system. You have to make a bold choice to claim your power source. And then it may be difficult to get yourself to that place of solid ground to learn to get on your own 2 feet. As hypnotherapists or hypnotists, we've worked with the mind so much. We know what fear does, what happiness does, what all these things do to us as a permanent.
You're very happy.
Well, it also is because when COVID hit, my first thought was, okay, we're about to go down into a lockdown, as we called it, which already the wording is traumatizing, right, to some people, which was just like, really, we could just say we're staying inside and cocooning and nourishing ourselves. We could have said anything, but that's what was said. But in doing so, one of the first things I did, I was like, okay, what's the best way to resource myself for what's about to come in this world? So the first thing is, the body is the vessel through which you exist in this world. If you have a premium car, you're giving it premium gas. You have a premium car right here, you guys, because this is the most premium there is. Without this, you're not driving any vehicle. So how are you resourcing this? What fuel are you putting in this? And that's the question I asked myself. And I had already cut out all sugar. But at this point, I was still cheating once in a while. I was like, okay, no more. We got to cut that out, because now the impact to my immunity could compromise me in more ways. This was before any vax was out or anything was out, right? Mm-hmm. So that I took out all cheese, because I know what dairy does for mucus production. I took out all dairy for that reason, actually. But I kept ghee, which is just clarified butter, and it's very traditional Indian lineage. And with clarified butter, when it's heated and melted down, it allows the body to absorb the nutrients quicker because of the heat and meltdown process. So I let that stay, because I'm looking at how this vessel of mine functions and what serves its function. Those choices may not be the best for everyone, right? But that's why self-assessment. So I did all of that. And by default, I lost 30 pounds in the first 6 months because I did that.
Wow. Just finishing that little last bit of sugar and then no dairy.
No dairy, no sugar. I also cut out meat, and I only did it once a month around the time when my cycle was coming and my body asked for it. Mm-hmm. So I really started to listen in. And when my body craved something in my mind, I was like, okay, why is this happening here? Why am I feeling it here instead of like a nourishing feeling here? And then I'd look at it and go, oh, because you're getting this hormonal shift. Okay, do we want to indulge the hormonal shift, or do we want to not indulge the hormonal shift? Because that's always an option. We always just automatically go to cave, but it's still a choice.
I remembered that you'd lost this weight, and you were talking about almost like how fun and effortless, and just how it was melting off of you. So I appreciate that you're telling people it's really because you checked in. You honored that vehicle, and then it was a non-event, that these things that weren't serving the body
It's a lifestyle. And that's why I find diet culture is so challenging for humans, because it's not, we know as hypnotherapists that the consistency of behaviors is what creates the autopilot, is what creates the sustainability of how easeful that can be, right? Like, so if our lifestyle is honoring the self and honoring the body and listening to the body, then that's important. Like there was this one day when I dropped a bottle of water on my ankle, and I was about to go to a wedding, and a friend's wedding in 3 days from then. And it was a 4-hour drive, and it was my right ankle, the one we need to drive with. And I was like, all right, body, what do you need to be sustained for this long drive on Friday? I legit canceled what I had going on that day that I could not do in whatever position that involved keeping my foot up on ice. And I iced it that whole day. My focus was, how can I restore my body's health? By the next morning, I was better.
Yeah.
And in early 40s, that's not as much easier to do anymore as it used to be in my 20s, which is also new lessons and adjustments to learn, right? As we age in life, different stages to age gracefully, like this is a blessing.
So
when-
self-hypnosis.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, self-hypnosis is then you're walking your talk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I would guess that really any use for hypnosis is something that you're just familiar with. I mean, it sounds like in 10 years, you've dove in and you've made this like a natural everyday. Like I want the best out of this life.
Yeah. And I'm not infallible. Like I'll fall. I'm human. And I let myself because I want to play too. Like, you know, part of the reason of being, I like to say that part of what I love about being on earth is that we're so tactile. So anything that's tactile, I would love to indulge in. And if it's not, we could just experience it when I'm up there floating form, you know, like, but when we're here, the body, it's like taste, touch, feel. These are all the things that are just, I want to smell the roses, like literally smell the roses because I can smell. These are the things that we came here to do. So I'm going to make sure I indulge in doing them instead of just taking it so serious, right?
So when people come to you and they are stuck, right? Because you alluded to that earlier, and they say, you know what? I know I have to push forward. I know I want to become better. I know I want to become more. But they come to you, right? And they're stuck. Maybe it's something that they're conscious of. Maybe it's something that they're unconscious of. What kind of things do you do to help certain people? I understand it's, going to be an individual by individual basis, but are there some generalities that you might be able to share?
Yes, I'm a huge believer, and I love to teach people how to fish instead of hand them the fish, which I know is not the great business model, but I don't think I'll ever go out of business, so I'm not worried about that. I really believe we all have the power to heal ourselves, and I am a person who wants to hand you the baton and teach you how to use it. So I resource people with ways to learn how to look at their own patterns and behaviors coming up. So that's one of the first things I like to do, get them familiar with their own self. Because when people usually come in, they're talking about their experiences, but they're talking about the ones they repeat, and they're not catching the patterns between this experience and this one. When you help a person see the behavior or emotional patterns or cognitive pattern, because everything will be different, right? Some person will be driven by an emotional thing. Something else might be a cognitive thing. At the end, it all comes to some emotion, but wherever it's presenting, and helping them see the ways they may be repeating that. And that comes from just having a conversation at first, right? The intake, the first chat, and then having the first experience of, let's have the first session of hypnotherapy and see what else you get to tap into about yourself. So my first point of teaching is always, how can you learn yourself best? Because at the end of the day, that is your most powerful power source. And we are so unique. I know my pathway. I know exactly how to wield my light in this world now. But I will not always know that, right? I'll always be in a learning evolution too, but I trust myself to know that I'll figure it out as I go, and I'll learn how to resource myself with my new tools and new abilities and new ways. That foundation is the goal for me to get everybody to. Once we do that, then they could come back and we can work on anything. You want to work on things like up-leveling your life and your career, or you want to present better. Great. That's easy. Once you know yourself and build that foundation, everything else can be a 3-session process instead of a forever year-long thing, right? And I say that because a lot of folks, especially in the modern times, because we're so used to Instagram speed, Facebook speed, right? We forget that the human brain does not operate at that speed. Our behavior patterns don't change at Facebook and Instagram speed. In fact, that deters the change. So I also like to just educate and help people understand how the brain actually works, so you can use it in your favor instead of let it be used against you. right? And not saying anybody's against this. Everybody's out there trying to be, independent, capitalize the same way everybody else wants to. We all want to earn a living. But when you learn how programming works in your mind, you begin to become a better gatekeeper of your mind and soul. That is the most powerful position to be in your body, in my opinion. So I teach them how to be that gatekeeper to themselves and how to recognize their patterns.
Do you wind up working with a lot of children?
It's so funny you say that because I've been working much more with children over COVID. And because I'm a person who trusts the flow of where I'm guided, right? That has been one of the surprises for me. And it's also been one of the great joys. Like you can see, I'm just lit up over it because this is going to might get emotional actually. I'm a person who has come into this life to be the closer in my family lineage because it was a lot of trauma and it ends with me. I made sure it ends with me. And so much so that to now, the people that were my abusers, I love them and they're my friends. And we are learning new dynamics because they're my parents and I have to love them, right? I don't have to. We don't have to. Nobody has to do anything, people. I chose to because I wanted to have that. I wanted to offer that peace before they leave this earth. And I want to have that peace for me. I never want to be one of those people that says, oh, I wish I could have when I could have. So it was important to me to make that clearing. And so one of the things I knew is I don't want kids. And I was like, universe, but I know I'm meant to serve and help. How? And so all these youth groups that came through that I had connections with the leaders of have begun to include me in their resourcing for their teens. And I'm really grateful for that because one, it's usually in neighborhoods and places where kids are not used to seeing people like me help them or in the, wellness field. So it's really helpful, especially like my own parents are like, what are you, a shrink? And I'm like, no, I'm not even licensed in that area. It's nothing like that. And like there could be stigmas in different BIPOC communities around this, but we really need this help in those communities, right? So it's been phenomenal. And working with kids has actually been a really big surprise to me too.
Wow. Yeah, I wondered about that, because you said your family, that religion was like a strict context. And so I'd wondered if you were supported by maybe not even only your family, but just your circles in the past. I mean,
I wasn't.
Are there a lot of hypnotists?
I wasn't.
Okay.
My family, they don't, I come from a family where women don't work. So just that concept was, whoa. Right. And so here I did, built a career for myself. I purchased my own home. Like everything that I purchased, even when I got married, was with my funding. My husband at the time was a newly NYPD officer, which is also interesting considering full circle 10 years later after a divorce, what happened in this community around racism in the NYPD. And I was like, God must have knew this was coming and wanted me to work through this before that 10-year came, because we wouldn't have worked through that because it had changed him. So it's like all of these different lessons I learned in that space. My family couldn't comprehend my experience to be there to support me. They love me as much as they could to their ability, but also these are people who also experienced trauma and did not resource themselves. So they didn't work through their trauma. I had been the only one actively day in and day out, year in, year out, doing the studies, understanding the biology of the mind and the biology of the body and the biology of the chemicals that affect the brain frequencies. And, my mother is an immigrant and she ended up on a lot of medications. And this is a time when the pharmaceuticals just came up. So there was so much layering in that, I don't think they had the ability to resource and support me. So I had a community of a few friends, but also they're not in this world, right? They were the finance people and they're like, what are you doing? And I had to, so it became like I was this educator by default if I wanted them to understand. And with hypnotherapy, I have to be honest, you get a call of it, you feel it, you get called to it. There's something here that entices you. Maybe it's the person or the energy, but it's not one of those things that's like, cake that you go around and everybody wants and knows about. It's a new concept, the way it's being used in the modern times. And people only may know of the concept of how it was used in old times. Even women hypnotists or hypnotherapists are something people are just getting used to seeing so much more of, right? Like the Melissa Tears that have like paved the way for us and all that stuff. Like, so I don't know if I was surrounded by people who knew, but I will say this much. For anybody who's ever looking to do this, follow your heart. I am the reason why I had to do this, to bring it to them. Right? They weren't going to get exposure. And when you think of this, when you're a community or world that is not sure about something, but you're that spark that's sure, you might be the reason to bring it to them. So spark.
Yeah. I mean, and that was my motivation to get into this, because it was so obvious that the lineage of hypnosis surpassed all of the stage hypnosis, the stigmas, the facade. And so I wanted the foundation of these techniques. And then when I figured it out and I got the concept and I saw the science and I applied it with people, and I was getting like instant behavioral change for people who've had decades of, anxiety or etc., I thought my family would want it. I thought I could tell them this is cake, and they listen a little bit, but until you want it, and until you've allowed that inner story to say, you know what, now is my time to up level. I'm ready to release the pain. We can't force them, and that's okay.
No,
And I just want to educate people that it's possible. If somebody's out there and they're looking for a new flavor of cake, look past that word hypnosis or whatever other word might be defining these literally ancient time, modalities.
I'll actually share a few of them. So I think we were talking about this earlier on about the shamanism work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about a little bit of the correlations and the similarities of I've experienced in doing the shamanic work, in doing the meditation work from India, and in doing the hypnotherapy work, which is very science-based in America, right? And here's what I will tell you. All of them go into theta state. All of them go into theta state to do the work. Yoga Nidra is another one. Yoga Nidra is hypnosis with sound in essence, right? Because the sound and sound healing also, because is an offshoot of Yoga Nidra. And all of those take us into theta brainwave state where we do the deep work. So whether we use the words or not, all of these ancient modalities and this modern modality have accessed this wisdom. There is no reason to doubt it. It's been there in every single culture of all time. If you're in a culture that does sound with drumming, it's there. If you're in a culture that does sound with, I don't know what else is out in the world, right? Like in India, we have the sitar and we have all these other instruments. It's there.
Even church, we think about, right, where you just
the organs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The sound, when we sing together, that's vibrational. You do that for a couple of minutes and you're in that song. We're all in theta. We're all in that program state. All of these go across multiple centuries, and we still use them all to the present day in all different parts of the world to help people heal. Like, that's evidence enough for me.
Absolutely. And then you see the effect, right? You see the change, you see that your brain can literally reprogram not just the way that you take care of your body, but the pain in your body. That's amazing.
I love to say, like, how often do we upgrade our phones? 2 years, 3 years? When's the last time we upgraded our brain? It's the number one CPU we have, central processing unit. Like, it literally is the program system. So if we spend so much resource and money, you guys, these phones are like over $1,000 a phone now. Like, we spend a lot of money, $1,000 on a phone every 2 years. When a hypnosis session on average can be $100 to $250 maybe. Like, and you can get sliding scales. So it just makes me go, do we realize the power that's available right here? Because if we did, wouldn't we give it a little bit more attention, just the way we give the apps we pay for?
I would say so, or I hope so. I can think that some people might be afraid. I mean, you've said that step one is self-assessment. Some people are avoiding that story of who they are, or they've got so many layers of other people's stories, that they might fear psychoanalysis, and that's where, if hypnosis falls into that category of therapy, then there might be this concern that, oh no, they're going to know me. They're going to see me. I won't be able to maintain my masks that I've been using this whole time. So I love that you said just the empowerment state, they know themselves. We don't need to know anything.
Yeah. And, you don't have to change anything in your world to anchor in your power into your power source. You get to decide where the ripples go, if at all. But what I do know for sure is that when you become an empowered person, your family will likely be like, what's going on, right? And you will likely need to acclimate and let them acclimate. Like, there's periods when just last week I talked to my dad about something tough and I'm in my power state. And this is the man that I had to rephrase. I had the opportunity. That's a reframe, you guys, in case you don't know, but I'm sure most of you know. I had the opportunity to reparent with him. Okay. And in doing so, part of that meant that I shared some information with him that I've had the process and privilege to understand and learn as a hypnotherapist. But I had to let him wait until he was done processing and call me. And that took a whole week. And then he's like, why didn't you call me? I was like, I dropped a bomb on you. You needed to figure out what that meant. Like you needed to understand it because I can't interfere with your process. You won't let me in. I need to wait for you to come with me and then we can process the rest together.
Yes.
Right.
So give your family space because you are the one that's evolving. And with that, the ripple will go. But no, we can't expect them to be like, let's go. I'm just as excited as you. That's what people like us are here for because we're just obsessed about the same thing because it's so powerful. But our family's not there with that yet. They may never be, but they'll benefit.
Well, and you said, you know, be the change. You start first, right? Like you get in your empowered state and they'll come to you and say, what are you doing? Yeah. And I like that you pointed out the reframe because that's such an instant supportive technique. You know, you started with I have to or I had to, and that speaks to this need of like dire urgency that it's somewhere in your emotional realm feeling that if you didn't, you would die. And so instead you reframed, you changed it and said, you know what, I get this opportunity. You know, I have this potential. It's an above the threshold. I'm certainly safe either way, but I think if I make this choice, I'll get better resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. You're watching me use my power source. Everybody has their own, everybody can do exactly that. And in their own ways. Like I do it in hypnotherapy, but you know, when you're an hypnotherapist, I like variety. So I also use essential oils because they change the state of our being. Like when it accesses the limbic system of the brain, scent, and you could do this with incense. You could do this with the scent of food, right? We remember of like family cookings. You can shift your state. So if you're ever in a place where you're like, I don't know what's happening, shift your state, then reassess where you just were and give yourself the resource state of whatever you need to move through what you just experienced. Now, if I had pride as a hypnotherapist, I'd be like, I have to use hypnosis. No, I only have 2 minutes right now between a session. I'm going to use the tools that are fast and available. Hypnosis can take 7 to 10 minutes for me for self-hypnosis, but sniffing an oil, it can take 2 seconds and I'm right back at my game. Sometimes you got to work with what you got.
Yes.
But there's many ways to use the resource states when you know your resources.
I love it.
Well, where can people find out more about you and about what you do?
You can go to my website, Shama's Light. So that's SHAMASLIGHT.com. And one of the tools I use, which I'll show you guys, are these gorgeous crystals.
Wow. Yeah, those are really pretty. I can't believe I didn't see them.
I've just opened a crystal store because that was part of what I was doing in the COVID times because I was guided by my guides to do that. So these are really gorgeous because they help us. Let me just unplug you so I can take you there.
Is that at shamaslight.com also?
Yes.
Okay.
So the crystals will be there soon. If you follow me on Instagram at Shama's Light, that's really where I'll be doing more of the crystals because I'm going to be doing classes around them. Some of us are fortunate enough to have more resource. So if that's the case, great. But if you don't, you can just energy transcends space and time. So you'll feel the crystal energy through the screen. And that's also helpful. Like there's so many ways. And again, don't let the pride stop anybody, right? If you feel like, oh, I want that, but I can't have, work on that can't have. That's the reframe, right? Other things are prioritized right now. That's the truth. There was plenty of times in my life when this isn't what I was working on, right? I was like working on different types of food in my kitchen because I was so busy and my funding was going elsewhere. It wasn't that I can't. It was that I was prioritizing A, B, and C. You want to reframe however you talk to yourself. So, and everything is always available. It doesn't have to be at your fingertips. That's a pride ego thing. If you can have it at your fingertips, great. If you can't, still come and get it.
And when does your book come out?
So it's interesting you say that. I knew I was going to be writing a book.
I think it's more than one because I think, I mean, you have a lot of information here, even the information that you shared here in the last, 35 some minutes. I think you have multiple books in you.
Possibly. I wasn't ready to write until I healed through the stuff with my dad. And we just got through a massive clearing. In fact, I'll share this much. It's a little vulnerable, but I think it'll be really helpful because there's a lot of women and men that have grown up in situations of oppression or abuse. And that has a lasting impact on our psychological development, especially if it happens between the ages of 0 to 12 and then 12 to 21, that next double developmental stage. And we don't like to think of this because we have pride. But there's a lot of things that affects in our cognitive experience. And when I say that, here's a couple of things that I'll give you examples of from my own healing and also working with a lot of people in that space, which is there's so much peace available in our minds. People who've experienced trauma go into overthink mode, and that takes away from your ability to resource yourself and your body towards the things you want to do, towards the things that bring you joy, because your brain might be on autopilot of damage control, strategizing for safety and things like that when it doesn't need to be anymore. So those are things that I like to move through. And I did that with my dad in the reparenting. And I got to a place where I realized, oh, you gaslit me because you gaslit yourself because you blocked it out. And that was, I like to, you know how doctors say when there's an injury, if the bone didn't break properly, you have to break it properly to set it properly. Mm-hmm. That was the proper break because that gave clarity. And then I got to set it properly. And it is so profoundly healing. After that, I knew, I was like, okay, now I can write the book. And that just happened 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, that's perfect.
That is very perfect. Yeah.
So the book is coming after the hypnotherapy school gets created and there's layers of joy. And I just know that I'm in a place now, and this was a trauma healing. I know I don't want to create any of this by myself. I have partnerships that I'm doing it in because we're meant to do it in union. And I don't have any babies. So I'm going to want to have people to leave stuff to when I leave this plane. Like things, that's a Capricorn in me that thinks like that.
I think your babies are right behind you there on the shelf.
Oh, no, but these guys came through because they were here to help me hold the space and anchor the space while I healed through the karmic clearing of my family. Because once I cleared that, I realized it's not that it's an oppression only. There was sexism there. This is a gender bias, generational thing. And there's no hate. It's just conditioning, right? This is the man that created me and he loves me. He's so proud of me. I've exceeded his wildest dreams because he didn't even think women could do this. But the gender bias, and I was like, I get it. The babies of the world, or I need to empower the women to claim themselves because we're in a world where it keeps trying to tell them it's not there yet. And it is. We are here, ladies. And the men who are on the feminine spectrum and who want that femininity out too, we're here. The world is here. The balance of the masculine and feminine is here. But we must claim it together.
Yeah.
Like a nation, co-creation nation.
Yes. Please, you guys, connect with Shama. And are you doing anything with groups? I would think that you've got some group workshops or something. Okay.
Yes. So I took that time to be with my family, and that healing had made a huge difference. So the group stuff is coming back. I wanted to make sure with the shamanic work, I am very thoughtful because it's such a deep energy work. And if people aren't familiar with that work, that energy can feel dark and heavy for them. And similar to the lotus, when I dive that deep into the darkness, I like to do my work down there and then come up to the light and help people at the light, because not everybody can dive in to meet me there. But if they're ready to dive to meet themselves in their darkness and clear that out and come back to the light, that we could do together. So there's going to be more community circles happening. Part of what I had to reframe, I really felt so called to do with the social uprisings of the past year, is to really begin to design things that serve communities that we don't normally market towards in the wellness industry, which is really the high price points, right? So community circles are part of that. And we're going to just have a moment to express without any feedback or input, because one witness is all a person needs to set themselves free. Just one. That's it. And it's more powerful if that one witness just witnesses instead of gives opinions, suggestions, feedback, witnesses. So I find that a circle is a powerful place for that, because you can come and be witness, not worry about anybody's point of view, and know you've released something there and cleared something. And from that, you can claim your own power back. Because a lot of why people get disempowered is because they don't have safe places to get something out. And when you keep it in you, it becomes part of your body. So get it out.
Yeah, I would really love to check your social media out. I will hope that you have some of these quotes. I mean, thank God we're recording this, because even just what you said like 10 seconds ago, I was just like, wow, I want that on my wall somewhere. Just like it's so empowering. It really is empowering people, not only at the cognitive side, but your energy, the emotion, it's palpable. Because I know you work with people exclusively virtual, but they're getting 1,000 angles of your light, truly. I think that's so amazing that hypnosis found you, you found it, and that you're taking it in your circle and out to the whole world.
Yeah, I'm grateful it found me too. Honestly, it's changed my life so much for the better. It's been work, but at the end of the day, guys, real talk, everything in life is work. When is it not? Really? Come
Mhm.
on. Right? So wouldn't you rather do work that makes you feel like this? I mean,
It's
it's
so fun.
possible. It takes
Mhm.
work. It took me 10 years to get to this point, right? But like every step of the way reminded me, every spark, every work reminded me. And when you find joys like that, keep following them, even if they're just hobbies, just do it. Because
Yeah.
everybody needs some spark of joy in their life. Keep doing it. And if you could turn it into your work and it still brings you joy, you're on to something big.
All
Perfect.
right.
So
I think
one more time with the website. Where do they need to go?
Shamaslight.com.
perfect. We'll put it in the link. And
Thank
you know,
you.
if you guys haven't come to the Co-Creation Nation Facebook page, that's where the community has this virtual base. So you can connect, you can ask questions, you can tell us, you know, what you're doing or what everyday strategies you might have already employed that you didn't even realize where you're in self-hypnosis. Because I find some of this stuff is almost innate. Like we know
It
it,
is.
like you said, at an inner level. If we can get the big brain off, get back into the body. I love that you brought up aromatherapy, making sound and vibration. So I hope you guys enjoyed really listening with Shama. And
Yes, thank you, Shama. That was excellent. Thank you very
Thank
much. We
you, Lauren
appreciate
and
you.
Troy. It was an honor being here. I'm so glad you guys are doing this. And I love Co-Creation Nation and like that we're bringing everybody together. I always love this unity over, and community over competition. So this is so important.
mhm. I like that you call it community circles. I love alliteration. So Shama's community circles, Shama's light, Crystal Queen.
So funny. I was like, what's the best way to do this? And I was like, you know what? I'm a crystal shaman. Because earth and grounding into earth is really something that I like to remind myself. I'm a Cancer rising and a Pisces moon for those who know
Mhm.
astrology. So there's a lot of water and flow in my life. So when I say I'm an earth shaman, it's because I also need to bring myself back to earth all the time and remember. But the crystals help with that because, frankly, the work we do is to manifest it through here, right? Like at the end of the day, when we leave this planet, you guys, what matters most? It's the marks we left on people, right? It's like the things, sure, you guys will inherit my things, but like, is that really what's going to make the impact in your life?
Yeah, you said Capricorn. So that is a really cool because you're connected to the earth and then the Pisces moon, that is an emotional depth. So I could see where you really do help people dive in and bring it out into the now time to assess it and up level it if you need to.
And I have Virgo in multiple places. So that's why I can like see all the different pockets of the interstellar layers in the
Mhm.
library.
Super cool. Yeah, well, you got a lot going on. I hope people were able to understand everything at that, meeting them where they are and really just asking questions if you have them. It sounds like you'd be approachable for anybody to reach out and talk more about what it is
Yeah,
that you're doing and you can help them with.
absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
so much, you guys. It was so
Thank you,
much fun.
Shama. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Take
Bye.
care.